around supplier development, the development of talent, and really thinking about supply chain strategy in a very different way. Tony joins us as a general manager, and he works and leads the customer fulfillment planning and logistics group. And of course, we wouldn't have a good supply chain audience unless we had a good acronym, so he calls that the CPLG group. And Tony's been at Intel for 23 years, and he's going to speak about this evolution of strategy and what drives supply chain excellence at Intel. Tony, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Laura, and good morning. Great to see you all here, and I'm honored to be here and speak. So let me talk a little bit about our journey at Intel. As you mentioned, about 23 years at Intel. I've been in manufacturing, industrial engineering, and various parts of our global supply chain. So just by way of introduction, make sure I can, we can get this loaded. Going from memory could be a problem. Do I have the, yeah, I'm thinking let's try a different one. There we go. There you go. Okay, so Intel, let's give you a brief introduction, give you a sense of who we are. You probably have at least a high level, and I'll give you a little bit more information. So we are a leading manufacturer of computer, networking, and communications products. Our goal in this decade, our vision, if you will, is to create and extend computing technology to connect and enrich the lives of every person on Earth. And it's a pretty lofty goal, frankly, but it's something I think is very inspiring. And it takes a lot of work to go try to build the capabilities to go make that happen. And I'm going to share some of what we're doing is certainly in the supply chain, but let me give you a feel again by way of introduction on the company of some of the places where we are investing quite a few resources to go enable that vision. First area is in technology leadership. I think this is a place we're probably the most known for. We invest billions of dollars in maintaining our technology leadership. There's something called Moore's Law. One of our founders of the company coined this or saw this and said, you know, hey, every couple of years or so, we're going to double the number of transistors on a given piece of silicon real estate. And it became what is known as Moore's Law. And what that means essentially is every couple of years you're seeing dramatic improvement in performance and in efficiency of your silicon. You're also seeing significant cost reduction in what it takes, you know, per transistor to deliver that capability. What that enables is a tremendous growth in use of computing devices. We talk about the Internet of Things. The Internet and the Internet of Things, and you know, the smartphones and the wearables and the advances in laptops and what have you, servers and all of that, all really stem from the whole industry, frankly, driving on Moore's Law. So maintaining technology leadership and investing heavily is absolutely a fundamental value and a focus for us at Intel. Manufacturing scale is another area where we invest a lot of resources. We have a global presence I'll share on the next slide just to give you a feel. But again, this is a multi-billion-dollar investment over a number of years. We are, you know, several years ahead of our competition from our process technology. Certainly, we've got tremendous scale in the manufacturing space. So one of our core drivers, one of the ways we've been successful over time is to be able to build and deliver that leading edge technology into high volume, millions of units to our customers so that they can launch and deliver products, right? We're an ingredient brand primarily, so you know, working very closely with OEMs to deliver their products, and we need to do that in the millions of units. We need to be able to scale very quickly and do that all on the leading edge, you know, which is where we make most of our revenue, or make much of our revenue. So manufacturing scale is very important. I'm going to spend most of my time talking about this third section here on agile and responsive supply chain. The journey really has been maybe over the last 10 years, and certainly we've worked on supply chain before that. I'll share, you know, what we're trying to go do to really be much more responsive to our customer needs and some of the ways we measure that. And then social responsibility. This is something that many companies are discussing. We have been investing here as well. This is really how we run our business. We are engaging much more with, it's not just an internal effort around social responsibility, both in the environment and the people we work with, but we're engaging much more on a supplier standpoint and with our customers to improve things from a social responsibility perspective. A little bit more on our manufacturing supply chain. As I mentioned, we're an ingredient manufacturer, and at Intel, the vast majority of what we make inside our factory network. So we have 4 million square feet of manufacturing space. That's 9 fabs in 4 different countries and 7 different assembly test sites. This is a truly global footprint from a manufacturing perspective. We engage with 10,000 suppliers in 100 different countries. So it's a lot of work to make sure that we bring these leading edge products to market and have the right direct materials, indirect materials, and the equipment, frankly, that will deliver that technology. About 5,000 active SKUs at any point in time, 24 global warehouses. We take in almost 1 million units, or orders rather, a year, and we have 3,300 ship-to locations. So our job in CPLG and other parts of our supply chain is absolutely to work with this whole network, our suppliers, our manufacturing network, which again is in the billions of dollars. So a key component of our success is how do we effectively utilize that vast network, balance that with our inventory requirements to ensure that we're meeting our customer needs when they need those units. So that's a bit more on our supply chain. Now let me talk about our leadership journey, and I stepped back and wanted to contrast maybe where we've been since about 2005 to where we are today. So I'm going to spend quite a bit of time here on this slide and just give you, again, a feel for what we've been doing. If you step back into 2005, I'd say we were pretty standard push model from a supply chain perspective. And if you know a bit about Intel, you know, we were counted on to deliver, okay, next year or 18 months from now, these are the products you're going to get, this is the volume you're going to get, these are the specs that are associated with those products, and our customer base would align their products accordingly, right? And it was a pretty standard, in fact, part of where I think an expectation that our customers had of us was that we were going to deliver like clockwork along that roadmap. Again, very much aligned to Moore's Law. And so that's where we spent our energy, aligning very much internally around how do we make our supply chain deliver that capability, getting new factories ramping, you know, other factories converting, you know, doing all the mix and the inventory strategies and what have you to make sure that our customers are getting exactly what they needed right at launch, and we were scaling very quickly. What we weren't was a very customer-centric supply chain, I'll say. Again, it's not that we didn't work with our customers, but just as an example, if we had a customer come in and say, well, you know what, we'll take the supply, but can we get it a week earlier? Can we get it 2 weeks later? Can we get an upside? It would take us 4 or 5 days to respond, and that was a yes or a no. So we weren't terribly good at listening to, you know, changing customer needs and really responding effectively. Again, great on delivering a product, hitting a roadmap with leading edge capabilities, but not so good on, you know, really stepping out and listening to our customers and understanding what they needed and being flexible to change with what they were requiring. So that was back in 2005. Really in 2007 is when I think we began a significant part of our transformation on our leadership, supply chain leadership journey. And this started with the Just Say Yes program. So our then CEO, Paul Otellini, you know, was getting feedback from customers about the fact that we needed to listen more effectively and respond more effectively to their needs. And this was essentially a call to action. You know, stop, as a company, stop saying why we can't do things and start saying yes and figuring out how we can make more things happen along what our customers are asking for, and help enable them more in their businesses as they grow and expand their business and try to move in different places. So we spent a lot of energy and soul searching around how do we go change our culture in here, but it really was a call to action. It was followed through with specific customer-driven metrics. So I'll talk about responsiveness and our delivery performance and what have you. So we really began to in fact, in our EBs, our employee bonuses, we began to measure what we called was our customer delight scores, and so we'd get extra days pay. This is the whole company, from the technician to the executive, extra pay if we were meeting a customer delight score. And so it really got the whole organization focused on what is it that our customers are asking for, and what is, an appropriate delivery performance? What is best in class, and how do we get there? How do we need to change what we're doing in our supply chain to go make that happen? So over the next several years, we spent a lot of time there. And on the next slide, I'll give you just some of the results. But we really turned around from a customer perspective. And I used to know somebody who was worked for one of our customers, and she joked back in the 2005 time frame. She said, you people were just not all that pleasant to work with. I'd make a request. It was very difficult and take a lot of time, and you'd say no a lot and what have you. And she really noticed the change. And when we got our customer surveys, things changed dramatically. Customers were much happier with the performance and our ability to listen and respond to their needs. At that time as well, we began to see industry recognition, which again reinforced the fact, okay, we're heading in the right direction. We're seeing our customers respond more positively. Outside in the industry, we're getting recognition. This is when we had made a internal goal to get on the Gartner top 25, right? And we hit it in 2009 with a 25 position, moved that down into 18 by 2010. So we knew we were heading in the right direction. But we also knew that our business was evolving and continued to evolve, and we needed to evolve right along with it from a supply chain perspective. And I think somewhere in the 2010-11 timeframe, we made another transformation or another change in our journey, and we much more aggressively began to engage really the whole ecosystem. And it's not, in 2005 and 7 and 10, to deliver leading edge products, you absolutely have to engage and collaborate with your suppliers and what have you. But I think we began to take a much larger role in leading the industry, and there are really several examples that I want to highlight. One was last year, we are talking about Moore's Law. From an equipment supplier standpoint, we look 5 generations out, which is roughly about 10 years. What do we believe in order to stay on Moore's Law? What do we believe our equipment supplier base needs to deliver? From a etching, lithography, thin films, and what have you. What kinds of performance from an equipment standpoint do they need to deliver? As we look to jumping to larger wafers, the 450 millimeter wafers, are equipment suppliers ready to go do that? Are they investing appropriately? And we're looking, like I said, 10 years out. Last year, we made a very significant investment in ASML. They're a leading lithography company. They do extreme ultraviolet lithography. And frankly, in order to sustain Moore's Law, to keep it alive, they need to be able to demonstrate working high volume manufacturing, extreme ultraviolet lithography within a couple of generations. So we invested $4 billion in ASML to help them deliver that capability when we think we're going to need it in the back half of this decade. So it's much more than just understanding and communicating what our expectations are and jointly developing research and what have you. We're making big investments in these companies to keep Moore's Law alive and really keep our motion forward in terms of what we expect from a product performance. So that's one example. Another example from just as other suppliers, we have been working very closely, and this is in our materials procurement group, working very closely with our suppliers and our suppliers to eliminate conflict minerals or minerals that are developed or taken from conflict regions. So, and I'm talking about tantalum, tungsten, gold, and tin. These are really important minerals that we use in our manufacturing process, and we made a commitment several years ago to remove where we source that material from conflict zones. And so we've made really good progress. Tantalum, we achieved a conflict-free sourcing there, and the other 3 are forecasted to happen this year. So it's another place where we're engaging with our suppliers and saying it's not just enough to provide a reliable supply. We've got to do it in a socially responsible way. Just another a place on the sustainability front, we are engaging with the Chinese suppliers. We started a summit last year called a China Sustainability Summit. We're engaging with our suppliers. We're inviting Chinese government officials as well as non-governmental organizations to participate in a conference. And we held one last year. We do one, I think it's in 2 weeks or so, back in China. And the whole intent is to begin to collaborate, share ideas, share best practices, and begin to raise more awareness around what are the sustainability issues we have, not only at Intel, but really in the industry. So the intent isn't just to focus on Intel. The intent is to focus on how do we get better and better from an industry perspective. So that's a place where we're leading that supply chain conference. We're engaging, like I said, those various organizations and people to participate and learn from each other. Another area I want to highlight, again, part of this where I think we're expanding our influence across the ecosystem is on the product side. And you're all maybe familiar with the Ultrabook launch that we started a couple of years ago. I think it's coming up on 2 years ago. So this is a place where, as I mentioned before, we're an ingredient supplier. We're not building the end product that you see on the customer shelves in Best Buy or online and Dell and HP and what have you. But we are taking a much more active stance in terms of, hey, how do we go really innovate the form factors we have out there, right? And Ultrabook is an example of where we really got the whole industry, and it's not just our OEMs, our customers, but it's really the whole supply chain thinking about how do we go build thin and light, affordable form factors in the notebook space. And we also obviously are working on how do we deliver lower power, better performance, or what have you from the silicon that we provide. But it's really an overall ecosystem play that we're working on. So in the product space, this is another really important area where we are really influencing and driving the supply chain. And there's been a lot of innovation that's happening even after Ultrabook, right? So Ultrabook will continue, we'll keep delivering more power and performance with greater efficiency, longer battery life, and better user experience and all that. But we're now starting to see 2-in-1s and convertibles and all kinds of different innovations that are coming out from our OEMs, and we're working very closely with them. So, you know, sparking innovation and driving the ecosystem to deliver better products, win in the marketplace is absolutely something we are, in our supply chain, we are driving forward. So those are just some examples, I think, from 2011 to 13 where we've really tried to branch out. Okay, we've got, you know, solid internal metrics. Again, I'll share that here in just a second, but that's not enough. How do we go influence and drive our overall ecosystem to create winning products in the marketplace? Also, in this time here, in the latter stages, we've continued to do well. You know, I did 4 customer visits about 3 months ago, talking about the supply chain, asking them what they needed, and you know, fortunately, in general, things are very positive in terms of the feedback. So we continue to check: are we doing the right things? And so the progress there has been very positive and continues to be very strong. We're also getting you know, the external, again, recognition just as a benchmark. Hey, are we doing the right things? In the Gartner Top 25, we're fortunate enough to move into the top 10. We're at 5 right now, which is, you know, fantastic for us. I don't know if we're trying necessarily going lower, but we're excited about, hey, we're doing the right things. We need to keep the focus here. But it's very much been a journey. It's something we continually evolve. We recognize, and I think I'm going to share some challenges as we go forward, but we recognize that our supply chain is not static, and it probably had been static for 10 or 15 years before 2005 with just, you know, the standard incremental improvement. But we've really had to up our game, and you know, frankly, that doesn't end. So that's our journey. Let me speak a little bit about how we did around the core PC business. When I mentioned that we started bringing forward the industry standard metrics just around that Just Say Yes program in the middle 2007 to 10 timeframe, and I wanted to share some of what we've done. And it really talks to the amount of alignment and focus within the company to do these things better, and actually with some of our suppliers. The first one there on the left-hand side is order fulfillment lead time. This is the time when our customers place an order to the time they actually get it on their dock. We used to measure that in weeks, in multiples of weeks it took for us to deliver our product. We're now in days, very much less than a week. And it's been about a 75% improvement from the time we started tracking this in earnest. So significantly better in terms of how we deliver to our customers. And this is a performance improvement that's really taken, what we respond to within our supply network, also how good are we at delivering our products to our customers. So once it's a finished good, how do we manage that inventory, where we place that inventory, all those things really help us drive that performance improvement in the OFLT space. Let me go to the right-hand side on delivery performance. Perfect order is another standard metric, right? The right quantity at the right time and the right location, and when our customers asked for it is essentially perfect order. We've seen about a 30% improvement there. We are now, we believe, and we've done some benchmarking, certainly very competitive, probably along the best-in-class level from a perfect order perspective. And again, these are just the same as P&G, getting it out there, what exactly are we going to go measure, really sticking to it, having discipline, and going down the path of, okay, what is it going to take for us to make improvement in these spaces? What's limiting us from doing this faster? Where are we seeing quality issues where we're not getting the right product or the right quantities or what have you, and really going and drilling those things down. So it's really been a disciplined approach. The other one I want to mention here is something that is really important at Intel. If you understand a bit about semiconductor manufacturing, the time it takes from taking an order in and actually building it through a supply network is very long, right? And especially as you go to more and more leading edge technologies, this can take months to the time you make a wafer start, this is our language for starting a material, to the time you actually put it in finished goods. It can take months. So, and then if you add the time it takes to receive a customer order, do your demand, processing and judgment and what have you, get that signal into the factory, and then work it through all the transportation lanes and what have you, that takes even longer. And we had a challenge. Our new CEO, Brian Krzanych, back when he was the GM of TMG, Technology and Manufacturing Group, shared this slide and said, look, this is where we are today. Here are the number of days it takes. I want to have that cut in half in the next 3 years. And it was really a call to action for the whole supply chain inside of Intel, and actually with some of our suppliers, particularly our freight suppliers. How can we go take every one of these segments within our supply chain, again, and this included geographies that take in the demand and do the demand sensing. How do we shrink that time? How do we shrink the time it takes from those orders to pulling them together to figure out, well, how do we best optimize our factory network? Where are we going to make those starts? Which factories? How are we going to optimize the inventory strategy? Into the fab and assembly test cycle times and the time it takes to move that material across that network. And over the next 3 to 4 years, we were able to demonstrate a 50% reduction in that cycle time. And this is absolutely one of the places we are best in class, I think by a fair margin. Our ability to respond and deliver products more quickly, and again, getting back to that manufacturing scale, pays real dividends in our business. So from a results perspective, we're really trying hard, doing pretty well. The last thing I want to mention, we're evolving to win new business. If you're familiar with it, the market isn't changing. We are getting into the foundry business. We're getting into wearables. We are trying to deliver effective products that compete in the smartphone business. So our business is evolving pretty significantly, and we need to really look at our supply chains and figure out, well, which parts of our existing supply chain can we utilize, which parts need to be different. So that evolution continues. And there are really 3 thrusts, and I'll try to cover them pretty quickly here. But the first one is deeper customer engagement and business unit engagement. So we've done it, again, understanding the industry benchmarks, doing customer surveys, trying to get a sense of what it is that they're looking for. We found we've done really well there. But some of the conversations we're having with our customers are, hey, that industry benchmark or that standard metric, that's great, but for our business, these are the 3 things we really care about. This is really what helps us win in the marketplace. And so we're saying, instead of saying, well, that doesn't align with the benchmarks, we're creating what we're calling customer value metrics. It's very similar to yours, as measured by customer, right? We're creating, okay, what are the things you care about the most? Let's figure out what the goals are with your supply chain people. By the way, we're also introducing, here's a couple things we care about, Can we include this in the discussion? And then on a monthly basis, we're measuring that. And when we do our quarterly business reviews with our customers, we share this. This is how we're doing. This is what we're doing well. What we're not doing well. We want to expand that to some of these new markets and new business opportunities. As we get into things like wearables or some of these other places, we're realizing we've got to evolve our supply chain. And without understanding what our customers are really looking for, we're shooting in the dark, right? And more likely than not, we're falling back on the standard supply chain solution that we have today, and we realize that's not what it's going to take to be successful as we go forward. And that gets into the second one, matching supply chain investments to business needs and maturity. This is something we're really trying to be much more open and dynamic about. If it's a fledgling business, if it's just in development stages, let's go spend time and energy educating them on supply chain solutions that they can use and how much it costs to implement these various solutions. When they get into terms and conditions with our suppliers or whomever, what are the supply chain considerations that our business units need to be thinking about? Because most of the time, they're not thinking at all about supply chain. They're trying to develop a product, and they're thinking about, okay, what are the specs? How do I make this thing work effectively, and what is the user experience? They're not worried about all of the supply chain considerations. Well, we're bringing in expertise to help our business units go and do that. And as they scale, we need to evolve and have different solutions, right? We need to have things which are much more robust, much more affordable, and what have you. So really applying a maturity model to where those business units are is something we are actively engaged upon and have been in the last couple of years. And this last point here, modular, configurable supply chain solutions, enabling time to market and reach. Really, as we scale, again, we recognize that for foundry, which is, we're making product for customers, we're using their process technology, our process technology, but their product development. They're going to ask for different things. We're going to need to be able to insert their needs into our supply chain, into our optimization of our factory network, and do it in a way that's affordable, do it in a way that's fast, that enables their business to win and be successful. They're not interested in Intel's way of doing business. They want certain answers which are different than what we've had before, right? We need to be able to configure our solutions to go support that need, but still keep the goodness that we have in our supply chain and keep it affordable. So those are three areas where, again, and I'm trying to move along here, but three areas where we're spending quite a bit of energy to go evolve our supply chain going forward. So just in wrap, this supply chain leadership, I think, is both a commitment and a journey. We continue to evolve. Being static is absolutely a recipe for failure. We are using metrics very heavily. I think we're evolving those metrics now to talk about where our new supply chain demands need to go. So we have to go define what those things look like and what the implications are for our supply chain. I talked about new markets requiring configurable and customizable solutions. And again, I think the really sea change for us, as with many of you, great supply chains are really demand-driven. They're really customer-driven. We spend a lot more time and energy trying to figure out what they're looking for. And thank you for your time.
Okay, you can't get off stage without a few questions. Right. Okay. So what advice would you have to folks in the audience about how to make trade-offs? What have you learned about making those trade-offs?
So in terms of the supply chain, probably a couple. One is what are the most important? I think about Intel. What are the most important facets of our supply chain that we absolutely need to bring to the table and make sure that we hit? Effective use of our capital, right, is absolutely critical. So for our business, we've got to balance that use of capital along with our inventory strategies. And ensuring that we support our customers. So to me, one of the criticals is really determining what is most important in your business to be successful, right? To me, that's a critical item. And the other one I would say, in making trade-offs, that one of the things I think we are really challenging ourselves with is taking risk. So even though you put it on paper, you do all your calculations, what more can your supply chain do? Maybe that's not on the paper, that you're willing to say, you know what, I'm not willing to sacrifice. I'm not willing to make this trade-off. I want both. And that's one of the things that I think we're really challenging ourselves on. No, we're going to go deliver that supply. And no, we're not going to go build all that inventory. But if we come and ask the factory network, this is the upside you can expect to see in this kind of time frame. are you in? And so part of it, I think, for us is, not settling and being willing to take some risk and really, having that open conversation about, hey, to win and compete and win in this business, we're going to have to do these other things or do all of these things at once, and we can't blink. So.
Well, how did you get the executive team to invest in suppliers 10 years out, right? So many people are pushing cost and waste back in the supply chain, yes. And you were able to really embrace the ecosystem and try to bring it forward at a different level and different potential.
Yeah, it really is a tremendous work being done from our technology manufacturing engineering group. So I think the key for us is getting back to that Moore's Law. It's something we've been on for a couple of decades probably, and I think the company realizes that in order to maintain that technology leadership, in order to, we don't know what the products are going to look like, but we know that if we deliver the capabilities, that the demand will grow, right? And we're seeing that today. You see the explosion of internet devices. All of that is coming from that technology innovation. And now, so for us, to me, a very smart investment. We have to go make sure that happens. We don't want that innovation to stagnate. So.
And so many companies are dealing with a very fragile ecosystem,
Yes.
And so were you surprised to find 9 out of 10 companies are stuck on the effective frontier?
Absolutely. Yes and no, I suppose. I think we are all trying to figure out where do we put our resources. And in our case, as our business is evolving, how do you do the financials, also make sure you've got the right time to market? When are you investing just to make sure you compete in the marketplace versus you're really trying to optimize the financials and the productivity and what have you. So I think it's a pretty complex businesses that we're all in. So.
And will you stay around for break if people have questions?
I will, yes.
Okay, great. So let's give Tony a hand. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. You bet.
So we talked this morning around the evolution of practices and the need for supply chain strategy and the metrics that matter. And we had 2 leaders talk about building their network, the metrics that matter. After break, we're going to look at companies that weren't able to move forward, and we're also going to talk about talent, the missing link in the supply chain. We're going to take a 30-minute break, and as you go out, please look at our graphic artist over here in the facilitation and the capturing of the data. As we go along, this will become a picture for you to take home. And also spend time networking. There are wonderful people in the audience. I'll see you back in 30 minutes. Thank you very much.